Welcome to 21 Convention, the Red Man Group for 2020 in Orlando, Florida. I will be your host for this episode, and today you have a distinguished panel of mostly alumni speakers, but we have two special guests here, and it is their first time speaking at this event, and I am very looking forward to hearing what they have to say and their inputs and advice that they can give and the insights thereof. Let's start with our introductions. Let's start on the far left. My main man, Steve the Dean Williams. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us where we can get contact with you, and where your best material resides.
Well, my best what? Intro. Oh, well, how y'all doing? Steve the Dean Williams, themanmindset.com. I've been doing this for over 30 years, teaching y'all to get y'all balls out of your woman's purse and manning the fuck up. Can I say that?
We'll edit it. Steve, why don't you take up?
I'm Steve Brule. I run a channel called Studio Brule where we publish the Flamengo File and a whole lot of other content, including a series called The Red Zone. We started dealing primarily with academic feminism and how it's taken over the entire university system, and from there, how they've spread throughout society to take over pretty much all of the pillars of our society. I could go on, but that's
we will.
Good, right?
We will. Pat?
My name's Pat Stedman. I'm a dating and relationship coach for men. Pretty self-explanatory. Help guys with their dating lives and relationships. You can follow me on Twitter, Pat_Stedman, or at patstedman.com.
I'm Socrates. You can find most of my personal work at manningupsmart.com. There I am I don't even say I'm a coach, really. I just help people navigate today's sexual marketplace. And in the course of my own personal development, as it's been exercised and developed through this venue with 21C and the Patriarch event, I look at being a father and being a very strong father advocate for both men and men who are looking forward to create a legacy and for that to be multi-generational.
I'm Jay Vincent. I'm an exercise entrepreneur. I own a couple of personal training studios up in New York. And my mission is to change the way people exercise to more of a research-based, scientifically proven approach. New to the 21 Convention, this is my first year.
Jack, you're up.
All right. My name's Jack Donovan. I'm the author of The Way of Men. I've been writing and speaking about men and masculinity and myth for over a decade now. You can find my work at jack-donovan.com, and I'm on Instagram at StartTheWorld.
Elliot Hulse, strongman, strength coach, father of four, father figure to millions of men worldwide, became YouTube famous, I guess you could say, answering young men's questions about growing stronger in their bodies, in their lives, and that brought me over 2 million subscribers. And so I got a lot of cool shit I like to talk about.
Okay. I'm going to actually pull a little bias since I'm the host. We're going to start off with Jay. And something you may not know about Jay is his personal background with 21 Convention. And I want him to elaborate a little bit about that so you hear that personally from him and kind of understand some of the importance of what his presence here really means. I'm particularly very moved by it, and I think it is a tremendous testament to the work that Anthony has done and the opportunities he's provided many of the attendees and men who attend these functions and watch these videos. Jay?
Sure. So it was about 2013. I began my whole exercise journey really on the path to become a professional fitness model, which I ended up doing so successfully. But after getting into a prestigious modeling agency, they told me I needed to put on more muscle. I'd been training my whole life at this point. I had no idea what to do. So started diligently researching, like most of us do, on the proper way to exercise to put on this extra muscle that I needed to put on. Came across a video at this convention, the 21 Convention in 2009 by Dr. Doug McGuff. Watched that whole video start to finish, blew my mind and changed the way I exercise from there on out. And it changed the path of my life to becoming an exercise entrepreneur, a professional fitness model, and I just found it to be the most life-changing video I've ever seen. So I've always had a huge amount of respect for this convention and what the speakers and the people and the information they provide changed my life, and I believe it's going to change the lives of many young men as well.
So, in fact, Jay was literally watching the videos online and now finds himself literally up on the stage repeating the process for others, so passing it forward. I find that remarkable. It is absolutely incredible, and this is the impact that happens when men get together and develop a male culture and share that amongst each other. So I really applaud him and the efforts that he's done and be able to tell that story to you today. I hope it influences you individually to do something similar, whether or not you end up here or anywhere else, but just know that you can make a tremendous change in your life for positive influence by following the men behind, around me, quite honestly. So, Steve, let's move over to you. How has 2020 affected you? You are known as a machine for podcasting. It is stunning that when we were in Warsaw, Poland together last year, we would go out, eat. We're up very, very early, and at 1, 2 in the morning, you could flip on a YouTube channel, and there were you on a live cast.
Well, what I love about this atmosphere is men. It's very rare that you get the opportunity to be around real men. We're so far and few, and this gives me the opportunity, and I'm sure that everybody the opportunity to see not only men, but how for you guys out there to see how men behave and see how men interact. So for me, this has always been great. I mean, I'm eternally grateful for you and Anthony for what he's done here. This is also given me an opportunity to meet the panel of men, not guys, but the panel of men here, and also meet you guys out there. And this is just what it gives me more inspiration is to keep going and keep pushing, even though you're your own inspiration. But when you see that you're changing the lives, just one small thing, one small detail that you can take from here and you leave with that and you evolve. That's what we all want you to do. And so it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like Christmas all over. It's just a great feeling, man.
Elliot, you are known for being a fiercely masculine male. Not just masculine, you train savagely, you live savagely, and interestingly enough, getting to know you, you love savagely. Can you talk about that?
Loving savagery?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just born that way. It's in my DNA, man. Listen, I am the son of a savage. Literally, my dad grew up in the jungle, barefoot, climbing trees, killing animals, drinking blood. He, with that attitude, king of the jungle, alpha male, brought that attitude to America, where he raised me and a bunch of boys in a blue-pilled world. And I didn't understand my father. I resented my father because I was told that everything that he was toxic. And it took me a long time to realize that he's in me and I am a savage. They tried to give me pills when I was a kid to calm me down. They said I had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. No, I'm just a savage. One of my talks was Return to the Father, and I'm blessed to be able to give a talk like that because returning to the Father to me is recognizing the savage that he is, the blessing to have an alpha male father, leader in my home, and then to know that that is me. He is me and I am him, and I can embrace that because it works. My father raised 4 of us. He's been married to my mother. There's been, that's a rare thing in and of itself. They are still together. And I modeled my life after the example that he's made. He's 70 years old. He was on the stage here last year. He lifts. He is very assertive and aggressive with his tone and his opinion. And it's what the world needs more of. And so I recognize that maybe I can bring a little bit of that savage daddy to the world that lacks fatherhood.
Fantastic. we're going to move from savagery to barbarianism. Jack, you're sitting right next to interestingly enough, you did not speak this year. I know you're developing a book, but twofold. I'll give you two questions. It's a one-tour. The first one, let's talk a little bit about what drove you to come back even though you were not speaking? What was the value? What was the camaraderie? What were the things that brought you here personally? And the second is, can you tell us about the project that took precedence over you speaking? And we discussed earlier, I think you made a great decision on it. I'm glad you kind of do both, and I'm really glad you can actually sit up here and talk to the guys.
Yeah, well, I saw who was speaking this year, and I hit up Anthony at some point, maybe back in June, and I was like, I can just come, right? Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, totally, you can come. And I've spoken here I think 4 times, and a lot of these guys are my friends, and they're guys who have influenced me. And this is a year when everybody's been kind of cooped up in different ways, and it's great to get out and interact with peers. And so I wanted to come and do that. And it's interesting to see people give speeches who they say that I influenced them. And I'm like, oh, wow, you went a good direction with that. I got to think about that. That's good stuff. So we can all feed back into each other intellectually. And so I think that was really valuable for me. And also, it's just a good time.
Yeah.
And really so I just wanted to come out and hang out, and it's been great, and a little relaxation. I'm in the process of moving, so I'm like, this is a little mid-vacation. Then I got to go home and pack a truck and move to Utah. So, yeah. But as far as the new book, that's been my big project. You get an idea for a book, and then it's just this big homework project that takes forever. And at least for me, some people write them in like 3 days. I don't know how to do that. If I can figure out how to do that, I want to sign up. But it takes a lot of work. I've had to do a lot of reading, and it's ready when it's ready, And the project that I'm working on is basically my version of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I mean, obviously, it's not the same thing, but it's the same idea, dealing with masculine archetypes and integrating ideas from really all the religions that are important, that have been important to men. I mean, there's always a figure of a sky father in almost all these religions. And why do we need a sky father? And it comes in this patriarch concept. Men look up to a father. When you're young, you look up to this father, and that's your ideal of what a man can be. But you can never be exactly him. There's a kind of a platonic form beyond him, this ideal of a father, and that's really what God's come from. That's our idea of God, is this father beyond the father, and so that's kind of the start of what I'm working on, and that's kind of the father. And then we talk about a warrior figure, that there's always a warrior figure, and he always usually has a thunder weapon, and he always kills a giant snake. And I might butcher the Proto-Indo-European, but one of the oldest poetic phrases is Hihogwingwent, which it means he killed the serpent. And it's like one of the oldest poetic phrases that they've reconstructed. And that's what men do. They kill monsters. And there was actually a book that a guy put out. I had it on my podcast, and he put out a book, and he was a warrior, and his book is called We Fight Monsters. And I'm like, yes, that's the thing. That's what's important. And so what we really think of as masculinity comes from that role. I wrote about it in The Way of Men. That's kind of that striker role, that warrior role. And then the third part, and Tanner brought it up in his speech. He's the only one who's read parts of my book, and that was kind of cool too, because he kind of like rolled it out for me in his speech. And so that was he told me he was going to do that. I'm like, well, I guess I have to show up and listen to your speech. But the third one is kind of this fertility figure, this perpetuating figure. Because there's so many things that we do in life that are really just to keep things going. It's not all this glory, and they're like, oh, I'm strong, and I did this, whatever. So much of it is just like, I have to go and call that person again, because I have to build that relationship and maintain it and keep it going. And it reflects back to the idea of tending crops and so forth. Like this fertility pastoral figure, and they've always had gods like that, which Pan and Frey and Dionysus and all these things. So I'm pulling all these concepts together in a way that I think is going to be useful for men, because these are all parts of our lives. And so I'm pretty excited about the project. The book is actually called Fire in the Dark.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to when it comes out. Now, to give you and I guys an idea of when Jack says hang out, he's done this more than once. It's you start out early in the evening. you either find a modern equivalent of a fire camp, or maybe it's over by the pool, and you have a bottle of whiskey and a couple of guys, and you start having conversations like this. Invariably, you'll go to bed, and in the morning, you'll be getting up, still kind of light out, and you'll end up coming across Jack and Party, coming back in, slauntering, coming on, and going, yeah, they just hung out and talked, did man shit the whole evening, and saw the dawn. And I just think there's just something way cool and masculine about just that. I think that Jack helps bring some of that vitality, masculine energy, and just camaraderie at a scale that is utterly barbaric, but is critical to one of the reasons why I think guys come here. It's not really for the stage presentations or the talks. It's for the camaraderie in the hallways. It's in the sidebar conversations. It's being able to meet and talk to the speakers individually. So it's not one of these conventions in which people just show up and go home at the hotel at the end of the night or at the very end of the presentation set. So just keep that in mind. I know this is about third or fourth time. I'm kind of guilty of it myself, but it's an absolute heroic effort. So congratulations.
Thanks.
So Steve, I know this is your first time you've come to speak.
That's
Tell us
right, yeah.
a little bit about your expectations coming in, what you knew, what you didn't, how you felt, your experiences, and then we'll pause and I'll follow up with another question after that, and we'll talk about feminism and how it's polluting the university systems, but how it's probably gone well beyond that to the K through 12. And the risk involved with sending your children to, quote, Rome, and then when they return, have them not speak to your tribe and values and belief systems. So let's first hear about your experiences coming in and what that was like.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it because I spend most of my time in Dominican Republic right now. And I was a bit nervous about international travel. They're changing the rules all the time. They're shutting down flights. They're opening up flights. They're requiring tests. So I wasn't really sure. But I got to know Anthony through, it was after his presentation on Piers Morgan show. Mm-hmm. Was that a year ago or 2 years ago?
Actually, it seems like it was only in January.
Was it that
Yes,
recently?
Yeah,
Oh, my
9
God.
months ago, yeah.
It has been a long 2020.
Yeah.
But Janice Fiamengo did a file, we call them files, a Fiamengo file, it's a video, dealing with how they tried to trap Anthony and the whole make women great again thing. So we were doing a defense of that. And then we had Anthony on to channel to talk about it. And then I got a little rapport with Anthony. We did a thing about Black Lives Matter. And after that video, he was really pleased with that video, that interview, the Black Lives Matter issue. He then asked me if I would present here. So that's all I know about Make.
So you segued in kind of nicely with the at least the interviews and everything else. And you had a personal review, but I think it's also intimidating coming into an environment such as this, particularly when it's 3 conventions simultaneously.
Yes, definitely.
So, and what was your experience as a speaker, kind of moving through that environment?
It's a positive experience. I have to say, I am not a natural speaker. This is like I have stage fright all my life. When the first time I gave a lecture in public, I was in grade 10, and I stood in front of the class like a deer in the headlights. I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't move until the teacher had took pity on me and said I could sit down. The next time was my defense thesis for my chemistry degree. And I didn't sleep for 3 days. I thought I had started having heart palpitations, and I went to the hospital and they checked me out. I'm all okay. Then my thesis advisor gave me, kind of coached me through it all and gave me some techniques to manage it. And I used his techniques for the following 10 years in my career in chemistry, where I had to often give presentations to, the authorities or the bosses in the business. So for me, public speaking is, and that's a pretty deep fear for me. So that fear to me is an indication that that's my direction of personal growth. And I've taken, your fears kind of, especially irrational fears, I think that's, if you face them and wrestle with them, try to get it under control, that's a great source of personal growth. So I don't know if I'm getting to your question.
Well, we're getting there. Actually, I'm fascinated by this segue. Let's stay on this track of you had fears and insecurities with public speaking, but
Public
yet
speaking, yeah.
your second time public speaking was in a very serious matter. You were defending your thesis.
Right.
Okay, and you go from that to there's got to be an element where you were up here presenting now.
Right.
Tell us about that transition, because I think a lot of guys have similar type things. I know that I'm always kind of nervous going in, but if we face our fears, they can become strengths rather than weaknesses.
Yes.
So tell us about your personal journey from your doctoral or your thesis defense to today.
Right. I practiced a lot. I had to practice because that was my job I was 22 years in research in the chemical industry. So there was no choice. I either dealt with this or didn't have a job, So apart from that, I guess one of the decisions, and it's part of the reason why I came too, is I think a lot about if I accept an opportunity or reject an opportunity in life. My decision comes down to, at the end of my life, will I regret more rejecting that opportunity, or will I regret more accepting that opportunity? And I think, in my experience anyways, most of the regrets that I have are opportunities that I didn't take. So that was probably the ultimate decision-making process for me to come here. That we're all going to come to the end of our lives one day,
Yeah, we're all
right?
due for a grave.
We all have to go through that. But I think when that day comes, in my own mind, in my own meditation, I hope it's peaceful. I hope to be able to say, I'm ready to go. I did the best I could with the opportunities I had. And so I want to be at peace with that. And so I try to make my decisions with that end point in mind.
That's fantastic. If you don't mind, let's segue to your work with feminisms, the universities, and how pervasive feminism is seeping through culture, all the institutions that we have, and how it's affecting masculinity.
Yeah, that is an enormous topic. And I think that's the defining topic of our generation, of our age, of this epoch. Because feminism is global. And it hasn't left any element of culture untouched. There's basically, Thomas Berry is a thinker. He was rather a passionate priest. And I met him some years ago and went to one of his talks at the University of Waterloo. And he identified 4 pillars of culture: the education system, the legal system, industry, and the religious systems. There are 4 pillars that support a civilization. And feminism went in the 1970s into the university systems. And over the next about 20, 30 years, they completely took over the education system in universities. And the university system feeds everything else in our culture, right? We accept university graduates as experts. And we shouldn't today. The universities are absolutely the worst place to do research, because you can't. The minute you try to do honest research, especially social research, sociology, psychology, if you step even a millimeter outside of the narrative, the accepted narrative, you're going to lose your job, or you'll be severely punished, or your career will be destroyed. So the good work today is going on outside of the university system. The people here, the people who are getting involved on their own time, their own dime, these are the people who feel really passionately, strongly. The university systems, they're politics, they're politicians. They're following a narrative. They're not doing anything new. They're turning the crank, they're repeating feminist doctrine, they're refining feminist doctrine to make it more powerful, make it more damaging in culture. So I'm going on and on here.
No,
but
that's fantastic. You're doing a great job.
they're in politics.
Yes.
We have a feminist prime minister in Canada. They're in the legal system. We have legal schools teaching feminist jurisprudence today in a lot of legal schools, if not all of them. They're taking over the religions. Even the Pope is becoming feminist-oriented. They're taking over industry. With 1984, there was, and it's an auspicious year, but in 1984 they came out with the affirmative action, which was to preferentially hire and promote women. Okay, so this is all the 4 pillars of society, and this started back in 1970. for the entry into the university system. Now, I was in research at Dow Chemical in 1984, and just starting my career, 2 years in, okay, and I'm a young guy, you know, thinking I've been at the top of my class, I should be having a good career here, right? I'm pretty confident. They had a meeting at every research department. The vice president of Dow Chemical World came, and this happened in every industry, in every group, and starting in 1984. And they gathered us together and they informed us that they were going to start preferentially hiring and promoting women, primarily women. I don't even think they mentioned minorities at that time. It was mostly a focus on women. And all the guys, especially young guys like me, were sitting there thinking, gee, I thought I had a career. But the reality is you only have a career if there's no women applying for that job. You only have a promotion. That was the essence of the message. I thought it would go away. You know, I thought this is another corporate program. They'll stick with it for 6 months to 12 months and then they'll drop it. But it has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And now it's incredible. It's a religion that has gripped the world. Now here's the clincher on that. The vice president of Dow Chemical in that time was a woman in her 50s who got to vice presidentship was not an easy thing to do in a company like that, a company of, I don't know what it is, 50 or 100,000 employees. A very tough thing to do, and she did it without any help of affirmative action. There was no need for affirmative action. There's never been a need for affirmative action. That was the start where we shifted away from performance and merit to identity in industry. And it's in education, it's in politics. Our Prime Minister in Canada selected his cabinet based on gender, not on qualifications for the job. Our health minister is a ex-graphic designer. She's an ex-journalist. 0 experience in health, okay? Our, what's the other one that we have there? There's another minister in a very prominent position. She's Deputy Prime Minister. One of them is the health minister and the other one's the Deputy Prime Minister, but they're both women. The other one's a graphic designer. Neither one of them have any experience. A finance minister. Our finance minister is the ex-journalist. 0 understanding, 0 training in finances, running the finances of a major country because she's a woman and she's a feminist.
That's remarkable.
I could go on, but I'm going to pass the baton here.
And honestly, I'm saving Pat almost for last. We're going to move from an incendiary topic to a particularly even more incendiary. We talk about feminism and as a religion taking over the world. How has the dating environment been affected and associated with the current events? And I want you to understand that the man sitting to my right has recently, through a Google search of my understanding, now owns the word hypergamy, that he has had more citations for that.
World's foremost expert on hypergamy.
Thank you. So it's a new title holder. I think publications coming out more recently. And I'd like to talk to just a little bit about your background in dating, hypergamy, relationships, and feminism, and your viewpoint on that subject matter.
Yeah, I'll just give a real quick bio. Got involved in the pickup space back in 2008 and spent about 7 years or so marinating through the various iterations of that as it evolved. Became a dating coach myself in 2015. Got married that same year. I work with guys in their dating lives and relationships. So wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of tactical stuff, but I also do a lot of depth work. And of course, you know, as Socrates, you've been saying, it's really difficult to separate this, increasingly difficult to separate what goes on in the sexual marketplace, so to speak, with these political movements. I mean, I think that the only thing you can, like, we should just call feminism exactly what it is. I mean, it's a communist, it's in communist insurgency. It's part of a cultural revolution that's been going on in this country for a long time. And I do think that, you know, I try to be nuanced on these issues, and I understand certain parts of it in terms of maybe the evolution of women and some of their consciousness being raised, perhaps developing some individual agency. I talked about this at 22 convention. But I mean, that's not what it actually is now. And I think that we have to start to be very clear about the brand name of feminism and the fact that it is an incredibly unequal movement, and its basic purpose is the destruction of the family and the destruction of society.
Fair enough. You're also an expecting father.
Yes.
More than a yes. Come on, you get.
Yeah, my wife's on her 3rd trimester right now, and we're looking forward to it. Looking forward to a beautiful girl.
And this is from a man who's coming from a pickup background. I mean, he and I are both living in the same glass house in that regard. So now I understand. Now, do you know the sex of the child?
Yes, it's going to be a girl. She'll be born around Christmas.
Isn't that fantastic? Now, interesting enough, there was some rumor, I'm being told, that you had a gender reveal party last night. Something with
I'm
a
gonna
Dodge Charger.
I'm gonna get roasted here. All right.
And a bottle of vodka or tequila and a
Champagne
in the back of the trunk of a Dodge Charger going down I-Drive. I think there are photos, and I hate to say it, I may have borne witness to that actual event. It did occur. So, Elliot, on the far end of the spectrum, I know we talked about your passionate living, how you live life, how you love, but you gave a really interesting 21 convention talk regarding Marxism and socialism and the involvement of communism and how it's affected men, masculinity, and how it's impacting our lives. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I started my talk with the facts about how men are doing today. We're not doing really well at all. There's all this talk about helping women, but the fact is that women are beating us in every regard. They're making more money than us, regardless of what they say. They're taking their lives. They don't kill themselves like we do. Our suicide rate is off the roof. We're using a lot of drugs. We're in prison, fatherlessness. And so knowing that men are weak, we're suffering, we got to look at, well, why? What's going on? And so I gave various different reasons, one of which ties in very closely to what we're talking about right now, which is a great brainwashing that has happened across the West. And I referenced